mode.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend and enjoy a couple days off. This is our Monday morning phone call. As usual, this is the best time for if you got questions, concerns, things going well, things going poorly, please bring them up. Everybody could benefit from you sharing them. So, and again, as usual, we rarely have somebody on a phone, but if you ever want to be on the phone on these Monday morning phone calls, it would be wonderful, and you'll get a lot more out of it interaction-wise. And with that said, this is the week that on Friday we have our normal mentoring calls, or twice a month mentoring calls. So on Friday at 11 o'clock Central, we have our mentoring calls. If you want to be on that, where you're required to be on the phone, and we go back and forth, role play, answer a lot of questions. So put that in your calendar if you're interested in pursuing that. So Missy, if you look for questions or concerns as I get started here, that would be terrific.
I sure will.
Thank you. So guys, what we want to talk about today is the proverbial objection, because if we have no objections, how rich would we be? So obviously the only reason we're not all rich is what? We all run into objections. So that's what I want to talk about today. There's actually a very, very easy way around it. When I discovered how to do this, life got so much easier because it puts you in control of every meeting. So I object because life is contradictory. And guys, how many people that we see just go ahead and buy without a single objection? Never happens. Never happens. Because even people that want to buy from us, they feel like schmucks if they just go ahead or putzes if they just go ahead and buy without even at least throwing up one or two objections. They want to feel like they've at least done their due diligence. So we're going to come across objections, so we better know how to deal with them. Let's see here. So before we do that, I want to talk about, because overcoming objections is one of the four cornerstones of the system. So the four cornerstones of the system are this. Number one is mutual respect. So what I mean by that is, are there people in our industry who take advantage of clients, sell things for commission, never see them again, just basically rape and pillage in our industry? Are there guys that do that, guys? So let me see some answers. Are there guys that will do that? Let me see some answers. Yeah, I'm getting it. Yes, okay, absolutely. Now, on the other hand, are there clients who take advantage of advisors who are really good, will bend over backwards to the client, take their phone calls, do all sorts of work for free, and clients take advantage of? Are there clients like that? Absolutely. So the first cornerstone is we must respect the clients, but we also must expect the clients to respect us. It's a two-way street. So the second cornerstone is don't sell, tell, preach, or teach. The only person they're going to believe is themselves. So we cannot tell, sell, preach, or teach. We have to ask them questions so they come to their own conclusions. And you see how important that is when it comes to objections here in a second. The third cornerstone is get invited in. I don't ever offer to do anything. I never offer to do anything to a client. I never say, hey, would you like a free second opinion? Hey, would you like me to do this? Hey, what do you think? What do you want me to do? Do you want to do this product? I never do that. I always say, what do you think we should do? What do you want me to do? So what's the difference between me offering to do things and instead making them ask me to do things? If I offer to do things, how much obligation is there? If I offer to do things, is there any obligation whatsoever? But if you ask me to do things and then I do that, now is there obligation? Are you obligated to me? If you ask me to do something and I do it for you, are you obligated to me? Absolutely. So that's why we constantly get invited in. But today we're talking about objections. So the best thing to do when it comes to objections is overcome them before they bring them up. That's the best thing we can do. But how many of us work at overcoming the objection before they bring it up? You know, I've talked to guys that have been in the industry for 35 years and say, well, the client always says this. Guys, if you've been in the business for 35 years and you know the client always says, quote, unquote, this, what should you do? If the client always objects to the liquidity of an annuity, or always is worried about annuities, under the misconception that they'll lose all their value at their death, if they're under misconceptions that or have objections, what should we do? Say it first. Exactly right, Bill. Say it first. Overcome the objection before they bring it up. So overcome the objection before they bring it up. If they say it, it's true. Here's the thing. If I wait for them to give an objection, then I'm going to have to tell them where they're wrong. But if I know these objections are going to come up beforehand, then guess what? Then when they say it, it's true. Let me give you an example of that. with the WealthMax presentation, what do we know about, what are the two big objections that people have with fixed index annuities and products like the WealthMax? What are the two biggest objections that people have with that? What are the two biggest objections people have with fixed index annuities or products like the WealthMax? Guys, you better know this. If you don't know the two biggest objections that people have, that's liquidity, number one, Bill. You're right. Liquidity is number one, and what else? Liquidity. Yep, Dale, you're right. Liquidity. So getting liquidity. What's the second one then? Fees, not so much, because there's not really any fees they actually see, unless Eric, you're talking about fees in that they don't get a high rate of return. Well, liquidity is surrender charges is liquidity. Returns, Jerry, right? Returns, returns, returns. So think about this. With the WealthMax presentation, what are the first two things I address? Returns and liquidity. So before they even can bring up the returns, the fact that this isn't going to make 20% when the market goes up 20%, because isn't that one of the big things they're worried about? Well, geez, what if the market goes up 20%? I'm capped at 8. So do I wait for them to make that objection, or do I bring it up first and have them tell me they're not concerned with the fact? They're not concerned with the fact this only goes up to 8%. That's the least of their concerns. They could care less if an investment goes up 20% and they're capped at 8. Why? Because they tell me, because I'd rather have something that's guaranteed, something that once I've earned it, it never goes away, something that automatically sells high, buys low. They tell me that's the case. I never tell them don't worry about it. So before they even bring up that, I bring it up. And then liquidity. How much time do we spend on liquidity? Huge amounts of time, 10 minutes on liquidity, but I bring it up before they bring it up. So they're telling me that it's a little more liquid or a lot more liquid. They tell me it's a lot more liquid. So I'm covering those objections before they bring them up. Every presentation I do, I cover objections before they bring them up. Guess why I can do that? Because I know what their objections are going to be, and so do you. So you get the power of presentations like the WealthMax presentation. So when they say that they're not worried about the fact that it has an 8% cap, it's true. When they say this is a lot more liquid than where they currently are, it's true. And it's a lot easier to do that before they bring it up instead of waiting till after they bring it up. See, because the only way what's the only way you can overcome an objection, guys? There's only one way you can overcome objection. What's the only way you can overcome an objection, guys? Come on, guys. What's the only way you can overcome objection? You have to prove what? Make them look wrong, Jerry. You're exactly right. Make them look wrong. And how many people want to admit that they're wrong? How many people like to admit? Nobody. Nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. So that, we need to overcome objections before they bring them up. That's the beauty of the presentations I put together for you. So how many objections are new? I mean, how many objections do you get that are new that you haven't heard before? Or are they the same things over and over and over and over and over? It's the same things over and over and over. Yeah, Bill, it's very, very few new ones. They're almost all the same objections over and over. They're not unexpected. So you need to expect objections. Guys, when somebody walks into my office, do I expect them to object to the things that I bring up? Yes. Why? Because it's their self-preservation mechanism. If they have no objections, guess what they have to do? Let me ask you this question. I want everybody to answer this question. If they have no objections, what do they have to do? So I want everybody to answer this. I don't want a few answers. I want a bunch of answers. If they haven't, buy, move forward. Exactly. And guys, the reason that the WealthMax presentation works so well is what? It goes through every possible objection they have, as we talked about. Does it cover the return objection? Yes. Does it cover the liquidity objection? Yes. Does it cover the is now the right time to invest? Yes. Does it cover the surrender charge objection? Yes. Does it cover taxation? Yes. Does it cover, is this better than where I'm currently at? Yes. It covers all the objections before they even bring them out. In fact, the whole presentation is what? There's not a single promise in there. The whole presentation is what? It's a series of overcoming objection after objection after objection. So by the time they get done, there's none left. So that's what you want to do. So are all objections valid, guys, from their current point of view? Are all objections are valid from their current point of view? Is there any invalid objection? Yes, Kevin says, you're absolutely right. All objections are valid from their current point of view. So we can't dismiss them as invalid. They are valid. So there's 4 types of objections. One is lack of trust. So these are all objections can be brought back to one of these 4 types of objections. One is lack of trust of you, lack of trust of your solution, or lack of trust of your company. So we're going to go through how we handle lack of trust of you. But think about this. Lack of trust of your solution. So how do we handle that? Lack of trust of your solution. How do we handle that, guys, to make sure that's not a problem? Lack of trust of your solution. How do we handle that? This is a tricky question. There'll be bonus points for somebody who gets this. Lack of trust of your solution. Guess what we never provide? Guess what we never provide? Our solution. Instead, we have the client what? Build the solution for themselves. The client, by us asking a series of questions, the client is building their own solution. We don't tell them that they should surrender their variable annuity, do we? Who tells us they should do that? They do. We don't tell them they should settle for an 8% cap, do we? No, they tell us they want that. We don't tell them that, we don't tell them anything. So the lack of trust, if you do it right, if you let them build the solution for you instead of you building the solution for them, there's no problem with lack of trust of you or your solution. Do you get that? So a lot of you wonder, Mike, why does it take you 50 minutes to do the WealthMax presentation when I can do it in 10 minutes? Well, because if you take 50 minutes to do it the way I do it, you'll have a 100% closing ratio. And I'm not kidding. Please, somebody send me a tape where you do it right and the client does not say yes to this and does not want it. I have not received any tapes. All the guys I've talked to, every single person that they've showed it to with the presentation, even guys that have only done it at 70% of the presentation, have closed. Guys, why does it have a 100% closing ratio? Because they can't answer yes and build their own solution for 50 minutes and at the end say, you know that perfect thing I just built? I don't want it. Nobody will do that. So you deal with the lack of trust by not even letting it become a problem. Let the client design their own solution. No perceived need. And this is the number one reason that we've seen a lot of guys that have come to 5Q that have tried to sell WealthMax. And guess how much they've sold over the last year? Not much. Why? Because they whip it out. They whip out the illustration with no presentation whatsoever. They whip out the illustration and are going to prove to the client that this is a good deal. And what's the client see written on that illustration? What's the client see written on that illustration? Sale. Yeah, Dale, I agree with that. But what do they actually see printed on that commission? I agree with that too, Fred. But what do they actually see written? Life insurance, exactly. Life insurance. So what happens to their listening ears as soon as they see life insurance on there? Done. They're not, no perceived need. I don't need this. Blah, blah, blah. I don't hear anything you're saying. Any proof that you give me, no. You're not going to prove to me I have no need whatsoever. They have no perceived need. So what's the next general? No urgency. We all come across that, right? And no money. So those are the 4 types. Lack of trust, no perceived need, no urgency, or no money. So how do we deal with these things? Well, can we overcome these things before they bring them up? Yes, lack of trust. First of all, like at our first meeting, in the agreement meeting, in the setting the tone script, we have 6 acts of courtesy in the first 10 minutes. We say, hey, would it be okay if I share with you what happened in 6 hours or so? Hey, I'd like to ask questions, but we want them to keep them a little more general to a more specific situation until then. And with your permission, I'd like to ask you a few questions, see if we can enhance what you've already been. See, your permission, would it be okay if, blah, blah, blah. We're showing this constant courtesy, courtesy, courtesy. And what does it tell the client? That you're not going to do anything without their permission, that you're going to let them know things that are happening before they happen. It shows that they can trust you. Don't tell, sell, preach, or teach. And we just talked about this. If I don't give them the solution, but instead they build the solution for themselves, there's no problem with lack of trust. They trust themselves. They just don't trust us. So if I don't tell them what solution is best, but they tell me what solution is best, there's no problem here. So we don't tell, sell, preach, or teach. We ask questions so they come up with their own answers. We make them invite us in by not pushing our way in, but instead of saying, what do you want me to do? What do you think we should do? By doing that, by not pushing, by not asking for the sale, but instead letting them ask for the sale, that creates trust. And then by showing them what's behind the curtain. What do I mean by that? Well, by showing them what's behind the curtain, well, our whole disclosure meeting is about what? It's about pulling the curtain back on the way our industry does business. The dirty little secrets our industry uses every single day of not telling the client the whole story. So by showing them all the things, it's like pulling the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz. By pulling that curtain back and showing them all the ugly things, by showing them how the magician cuts the lady in half, what do they know about us? If we show them all the tricks that all the other advisors use, what do they know about us, guys? If a magician shows you how he cuts a woman in half, can he ever trick you with that again? No. So when I'm showing them all the tricks of the industry, what do they know about me? What do they know about me, guys? Am I going to try to trick them with those things? No, because I've already shown them how they work. So how could I possibly show them how they work and then circle back and try to trick them with them? So the disclosure meeting creates unbelievable trust in us. We're the knight in shining armor, the first honest person they've met in the industry when you do the disclosure meeting. So that's how we deal with lack of trust. And then we're patient. Do we ever tell them, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this? Or do we just constantly ask them questions so they can come to their own conclusion when they should do things? So these are the things that we do that are built right into 5Q that overcomes that lack of trust. Can we overcome these objections before they bring them up? How about a no perceived need or value? How can we handle that? Well, the disclosure meeting, when they come in to see us at that second meeting, before the second meeting, do they have any clue? I mean, they come in thinking they have a financial head cold, don't they? They think they have a financial cold. Do they realize they have financial cancer? They don't. So we take a perceived need from, well, I'll see if this guy has any good ideas, to what? What do we do at the end of the disclosure meeting? They come in, what do they come in the disclosure meeting for? At the second meeting, they come in thinking, I'm coming in to see if he's got any good ideas. What do they leave thinking? They come in thinking, I wonder if he has any good, some good ideas I can use. What do they leave thinking, guys? If you do the disclosure meeting right, what do they leave thinking? So let's get some answers to this. What do they leave thinking? Come on, guys. This is 5Q Group 101. What do they leave thinking at the disclosure meeting after that second meeting? Must be taking a long time to type. We go through the 21-point checklist and well, let me ask you this. This is an easier yes or no question. Do we give them any ideas at the second meeting? Do we give them any solutions or ideas at the second meeting, guys? Let's get some answers to this. Maybe the other one was too long to type in. Come on, guys. This isn't me just talking for an hour. I need to know you guys are out there. So, do we give them any solutions or ideas at the first meeting? Oh, you know what? I'm an idiot. Sorry about that.
I was going to say, there's lots of answers there, Mike.
I didn't scroll. That's my fault, guys. Sorry. I'm not scrolling on the comments. Sorry about that. So, yeah, they come into the second meeting. We don't give them any solutions. They want ideas and solutions, but we don't give them any. Instead, we show them that they cannot trust. By asking them questions, they discover they cannot trust their current advisor, they do not like their current advisor, and they cannot get rid of their current advisor quick enough. So, what happens to the perceived need at the disclosure meeting? What happens to that perceived need at the disclosure meeting? Well, they don't want to leave their advisor. They need to leave their advisor. So we create. We've taken them from seeing no perceived need. Because guys, let me ask you this question: if they come in thinking that they're just looking for a few good ideas, and we give them those ideas, what will they do with those ideas? If all we do is give them what they want at that second meeting, is give them a few good ideas, what are they going to do with that? They're going to take it back to their current advisor. Because do they see a perceived need to do those things with you? You're exactly right, Michael. You're exactly right, Michael. Yeah, exactly, Kevin. No, they don't see a perceived need to do it with you, so they're taking it back. So we have to change from no perceived need to an unbelievable need, and that is that they need to leave their advisor. Does that make sense? So you can see the whole 5Q system is built around overcoming objections before they bring them up. How about this objection? Can we overcome the urgency objection? Well, again, the disclosure meeting, let me ask you a question, guys. If you know your banker is screwing you, how long are you going to leave the money in the bank? And this is the analogy I give. Let's say that I've been wanting to go on a vacation for 5 years. I've saved for it. I think about it. I've got a dream board with all the different pictures of it up there. I've been planning for it and planning for it and planning for it. And then, let's say 2 days before I go on this dream trip, I find out my advisor is screwing me. That he's obviously been overcharging me. He's been putting me in bad investments. He's been putting in investments that make him a lot of money, but take advantage of me. There's things that are in my situation that really damage my family. What will I do? Will I say, you know what? As soon as I get back from vacation, I'm going to take care of that. Is that what I'm going to say? If I hate and distrust my advisor, am I going to wait till I get back from vacation? Because this is a dream vacation. This is a vacation I've been planning for 5 years. No, I'm going to do it now. You're exactly right, guys. I'm going to do it now, not wait. So when you do the second meeting appropriately, I tell you, half the guys that the clients that I worked with wanted to sue their broker at the end of that meeting. So much so I had to come up with a script on how to overcome so we wouldn't get into a situation where they're suing their broker, but instead just move the money. But when you get to a point where they want to sue their broker, they can't move the money fast enough. So what happens to urgency? It goes right off the charts. See, they don't want to leave their advisor. They need to leave their advisor, not soon, but now. How about this objection? No money. Well, we overcome that objection at the first meeting. We find out whether they have money at the first meeting or not. If they don't have money, well, we're not going to work with them. But what we do is we try to help them the best we can at that meeting. We'll write down on the yellow pad, we'll get your power of attorney updated. I mean, we'll actually give them solutions at that first meeting if they don't have enough money for us to work with. But then, guys, what do we do? Once we help them as best we can at that first meeting, what do we ask for then, guys? Those of you that can, what do we ask for? We ask for references, referrals, exactly, referrals and references. What I would do, again, if you're not an RIA, if you're an insurance professional or if you're a registered rep, you can ask for references. So what I would do with those people that we didn't do business with, I say, hey, did I try to sell anything today? Well, no. Did I try to, rescue you to the floor and try to make you buy something from me? No. Was it a helpful meeting? Yes. Did you get benefits out of it? Yeah. You gave us all this information, blah, blah. Yeah. So can I ask you a question? If I send you home with a self-addressed stamped envelope, could you write a little letter saying that? Because a lot of people won't meet with me because they think I'm going to wrestle them on the floor and force them to buy from me. Did I do that to you? No, you didn't. So would you be willing, if I send you home with a self-addressed stamped envelope, to write me a little note saying that it was a pleasant experience, you got a lot of good value from it, and it was you got a lot of good information, that I'm a trustworthy person? Said, would you be willing to do that? When we send home self-addressed stamped envelopes to these people, guess what percentage of people? Geez, I think there's probably a handful, maybe 5 people that we sent those home with that we didn't get letters back. And guess what? The only thing that was on my coffee table, guys. The only thing that was on my coffee table is it wasn't Money Magazine, it wasn't a golfing magazine, it wasn't a gardening magazine, it wasn't a travel magazine. Guess what it was? It was a 3-ring binder with all of my references. Exactly right, Kevin. It was a book with all my references. So the only reading material they had were people saying how great I was. And just as an aside here, what were the only pictures I had on my walls, guys? The only pictures I had on my walls was all of the client. Yeah, with clients, exactly right, Kevin. I had all my client appreciation barbecues and garden tours and Christmas light tours. Tons of pictures, and I put them into a collage. So I had like 5 collages of pictures. So I don't line them up in a nice little row like they're victims. Instead, they're pictures of collages of each one of the events. And guess what people would look at when they came in? All of my happy clients. And invariably, they find 3 or 4 people that they know up there. Don't walk away from people with no money. And then help them the best you can at that meeting. At that meeting, let them know you can't bring them on as an official client, but here's some things you could do. And then get them to write a letter of endorsement. Okay? Help them best you can. Get a letter of testimonial with a self-addressed stamped envelope. It has to be a self-addressed stamped envelope. Why? Because if they don't have enough money, I found this. If they don't have enough money, guess how they look at a self-addressed stamped envelope, guys? If there's a physical stamp on that envelope, guess what they look at the cost, Kevin, that they have to use it. They have to return it. They cannot throw a stamp in the garbage. So they have to send something back to me. I've even had people drive to bring the letter back to save me the stamp and say, here's the envelope. So, they probably wasted $4 of gas to get me, to save me 50 cents in postage. And it can't be a postal meter. Has to be a stamp. So agreement, disagreement. What should you do if someone is giving you, so now, that's how we overcome objections before they bring them up. But sometimes, no matter what we try to do, they're going to give us an objection. So what should we do if someone is giving us an objection at the agreement meeting? So at that very first meeting, if somebody's giving us an objection at that very first meeting, are we trying to sell anything at the first meeting, guys? Are we trying to sell anything at the first meeting? No, exactly right, Bill. No, we're not trying to sell anything at the first meeting. So if they give us an objection at the first meeting, what do? Just roll with it. Agree with them. Exactly, Kevin. Agree with them. What's the point of arguing with somebody where we're not even trying to sell anything? So we disagree with them. Perfect, Kevin and Bill. So the first time they do it, we dismiss it and we move on. We just kind of say, oh, we just pretend we don't hear. The second time, are they being reasonable? If no, now here's the thing. If they're just hammering and have a point of view that we know will never, they're identifying themselves as people we never want to work with, you need to get them out there quickly. But if they're just basically saying things that we don't agree with, it's not a huge deal unless you think they're going to be future deal breakers. Okay, so if all else fails, though, here's the objection. So in the agreement meeting, we want to avoid all objections and just kind of roll with them, ignore them, just keep moving on, unless they identify themselves as unreasonable people. But now, in the disclosure meeting, if they're disagreeing with us, can we move past an objection if they're disagreeing with us at a disclosure meeting? So we get to a point where we're at, trying to find out why the advisor may not have titled things correctly. And they give us all this objection about, my guy probably didn't know that, and it's really not his fault, or whatever. Can we just move on at the disclosure meeting? Do we just move on when we hear objections? No, Bill, you're exactly right. Right, Dale. No, we do not do that. You have to, when you hit the hard spots, you have to stop, because this whole presentations, all the presentations we do are built. We use little baby steps. And in building the process, by the end, the only thing they can say is they want to move the money. But they're built on these little steps. And if you start, if they start fighting you at any one of those steps, it collapses all the future steps. You're building your house on sand then. We don't want that to happen. So when they give me an objection, I do not move on until we're all in agreement. So how do I deal with objections then? The first thing is I'm going to acknowledge the objection. And what I mean by acknowledge is simply say, absolutely right. You're 100% correct there. Absolutely. You're right on target. So what am I doing there? No matter what they say, because when they say the objection, is their fight-flight going up? Yes. Is their blood pressure going up? Yes. Everything about them is getting into a fight or a flight mentality, and we have to break it off right there. Right, Dale? We get on their side. So the first thing you have to do is I acknowledge, say, absolutely. Acknowledge isn't even the right word there. It should be agree with their objection. I say absolutely. Because, again, we talked about it earlier. You're right, Kevin. It diffuses them because they're expecting you to fight back. And then when you say, instead you just agree with them, they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. What did he just say? He just agreed with me? Because, guys, when they object, do they realize that they're objecting? Do they realize that you're probably going to disagree with them? Yes, they do. So they're set up ready for a fight. And when you disagree with them, what happens to their fight? You're like all greased up. They tried to grab you, and you squeezed out from. They couldn't even grab you. There was nothing to grab onto because they thought you were going to fight. Instead, you agreed with them. They're like, holy cow. Takes the steam out, right, Bill? So we acknowledge, or I'd say, take that out and say, agree with the objection. And do I say, now, guys, let me ask you a question. If somebody objects to me and I say, yeah, I can see why you'd think that, is that agreeing with them? Somebody says, no, Bill, you're right. No, everything, no, exactly. No, that's not agreeing with them. It's saying what? I see what you're thinking, but you're wrong. No, when I say agree with them or acknowledge them, I say absolutely. You're 100% right. You're right on target. I don't care how you want to say it, but I always say absolutely. If you hear me saying absolutely, if you see me role-playing with somebody or actually talking to somebody and I say absolutely, there's a high likelihood I totally disagree with them. But I totally disagree with them from my mindset. But does that mean that what they're saying is invalid? No, because from their mindset, they're absolutely right. So even though in my mindset I disagree with them, I say absolutely, and it's my mechanism to make because if their fight-flight is going up, what's happening in my fight-flight? When somebody gives me an objection, what's happening in my blood pressure? What's happening in my pulse rate? What's happening in my listening skills? Yeah, It's getting screwed up too. Exactly, Kevin. So I need to lower my own fight flight as well as theirs. So the first thing I have mastered for myself to control my own emotions is when I hear an objection, I automatically say the word absolutely. It's like my touch point. So if you ever hear me say absolutely, there's a high likelihood I totally disagree with the person I'm talking to, but that's a trigger for me to say, slow down, Mike. What they're saying is totally valid. Let's explore this. Let's explore it from their point of view. You know your point of view, but let's explore their point of view. Okay? So that's what I'm doing there. Then I paired it back in the form of a question. So what I say is, if they say, this isn't very liquid, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to be investing in something very liquid, would you? So I just paired it back in the form of a question. So what else could they say? They could say, well, this doesn't get a very high rate of return. Absolutely, you wouldn't want to be investing in something without a high rate of return possibility, would you? So what's happening to their fight-flight when I do this? I agree, absolutely, and then I repeat the form back in the form of a question and get them to say what? Agree with me. So the first question I ask them gets them immediately agreeing with me. What happens? That whole fight-flight has gone right out the window. And like, holy cow, I thought this conversation was going to go a whole different way. Instead, they're like, their blood pressure goes down. Their pulse goes down. Right, RC. They lower their defenses. They're like, oh, this guy seems pretty reasonable. And so what happens to their listening skill when their defenses go down? Their listening skills go up. So I acknowledge or agree with their objection, paired it back in the form of the question so that they are immediately agreeing with me, and then I get on their side. I tell them why their objection is right. So with liquidity, we say, yeah, absolutely. And we wouldn't want to be investing in something that isn't going to give us a lot of liquidity, would we? And they say, no, you're right. We wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, because if we do something that's illiquid, boy, the chances are the first time we do something that's illiquid, when are we going to need that money? Probably the day after, right? So that'd be crazy to do that. And then I'm going to get on their side, get on their side, get on their side. So I'm going to lower their defenses. And in fact, when you do this appropriately, when you get on their side, get very, very good at this, you get on their side so much that eventually, guess what they do? If I get on somebody's side about liquidity so much that, man, you need something totally liquid and you don't have access to within, if I don't have access to it when I snap my fingers, I mean, I'd work towards this. After 5 minutes, I get to the point where I'm saying, yeah, if you don't have money when you can snap your fingers, I mean, you should, in fact, you should carry all of your money around with you all the time so you have absolute liquidity to it. And what are they going to eventually say? Now, I don't start out there. Exactly, Kevin. They're going to eventually tell me it's not a big deal, because I go from, yeah, liquidity is important. You wouldn't want to be stuck where you needed money when you needed it and you couldn't get at it. And I keep moving and I keep talking. But 5 minutes, I keep building up to the point of ridiculous, being that, yeah, so I always carry all my money with me in my wallet. I had to get a bigger wallet because that's what. And they eventually say, well, no, I get it. You don't have all your money liquid. You need some of your money liquid. So they start to explain to you why their objection was what? Not valid. You can't tell them, but they tell you. So I'm going to get on their side. And then this is the more advanced form. Determine a bottom line, tell them a story, and then have them reverse tell me the story, and then do outs and ins. And that's when you are an expert at this. Guys, there's not an objection that you could give me that I couldn't have you within 10 minutes totally agreeing with me. Totally agreeing with me, because I can go through all this. But here's the thing. You don't need to do all these things. All you need to do is acknowledge, pair it back in the form of a question. And when I say pair it back in the form of a question, all I do is say what their objection was, and then I say, wouldn't it, shouldn't it, doesn't it? I mean, so when they say that liquidity's it's not liquid enough, say absolutely. You wouldn't want to be investing in something that doesn't give you a lot of liquidity, would you? No, you're right, I wouldn't. So they're agreeing with you. So all you need to do is tack on those two words. And then get on the client side. If you just do those three things, forget all those other things I'm showing you, all these other things, which is the more advanced formula. If you just do these three things, acknowledge, pair it back in the form of a question, and not acknowledge, but agree, pair it back in the form of a question, and get on the client side, guess what's going to happen to all of the objections that clients have? I mean, when I've just taught guys this, they're like, Mike, I use this, and it's unbelievable. I mean, it's like it's. So what do they disappear exactly right, Bill. And then Travis asks, Are these slides questions available on the site? Help me out, Travis, when you're saying slides and questions. Are you just talking about this, you're just talking about the presentation we're doing right now, or are you talking about actual slide questions for, oh, yeah, that's going to be not the slides, but the actual coaching call will be available on the site. So, and Missy, do we have this basic objection formula somewhere on the site, or Jeff?
I believe it is, but I'm actually out there looking to make sure. I think it's out there somewhere.
Okay, if you find it, let me know and tell them where it is. But guys, if you just do these 3 things, you're going to find that all the objections just melt away. Because all the people want to know is that when people give you an objection, all they want to know is what, guys, about you? When they give you an objection, all they want to know about you is what? That you don't have an agenda, that you're there to help, that you're there to understand, that you care, exactly, RC, that you care, that you're listening to them, right, Bill? That you're honest, Dale, exactly. I mean, that's what they're looking for. So when they give me an objection and they expect me to fight them, instead I agree with them. I pair it back in the form of a question to get them agreeing with me immediately, and then I tell them why their objection is totally valid. Guess what I can do after I do that for 5 minutes? What does that allow me to do after I do that for 5 minutes? It allows me to then have them look at it from my point of view. After I spent 5 minutes looking at it from their point of view, guess what they give me permission to do? To explain my point of view. I mean, all these other things here are a way to get them to tell you why your point of view is right. But here's the thing. If all you do is these 3 things, tell them agree with their objection, pair it back in the form of a question so they agree with you, and then get on the client side. At the end of that, all you'd need to do is just basically overcome the objection the way you always have overcome that same objection, but this time they're willing to listen to you. Why? Because after spending 5 minutes getting on their side and telling them that their point of view is valid, they're going to listen to your point of view to see if it's valid as well, and then they're going to make a decision of what was the right thing to do. And what is it most times? But if all you do is try to overcome the objection immediately, yeah, but this isn't very good. Yeah, but look at how liquid your current investment is. I mean, it's a lot more liquid than that, isn't it? Blah, 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 blah. What do they do then? Fight you. They're done listening to you. Whatever you say, you have an agenda, obviously, because why else would you object to what they're saying? Why else, when they gave you an objection, would you try to fight them? Except that you have an agenda. And what's your agenda? What are they going to jump to the conclusion your agenda is? Why are you trying to overcome their objection, guys? How do they view the reason? Yeah, they want to sell them something. Exactly right, Bill, that you want to sell them something. So instead, when you do it this way, you agree with their objection, not acknowledge, but agree with their objection, parrot it back in the form of a question so that they're immediately agreeing with you, and then get on the client's side for 5 minutes. And why 5 minutes, guys? Why do I want you to get on their side for 5 minutes? There's a huge reason for this. Why do I want you to get on their side for 5 minutes? They forget, Bill. You're exactly right. They forget what their objection was. If you've ever heard me overcome an objection before, or been the victim of me overcoming your objection, by the time I'm done with you, at the end of that 5 minutes, guess what you can't remember? You can't remember what even you brought up. You can't even remember the objection you brought up, and you're just agreeing with me. See, and that's great, because if you forget the objection you brought up, guess what that means? It means that you never have to admit that you're what? If you've forgotten the objection you brought up, what does it mean? You never have to admit that you're wrong, Dale. Exactly. You never have to admit that you're wrong. So then everybody's happy. We can move along away from this objection it's been completely put away. We're all on the same side, and we're going to the direction that I recommended because you don't have to admit that you're wrong. So the unfortunate thing, or the reason I want you to do it for 5 minutes is why? Because if I ask you to do it for 5 minutes, how long are you going to do it? I do it for 5 minutes and 1 minute, exactly, Bill. So if I ask you to do it for 3 minutes, you're going to do it for 30 seconds. If I ask you to do it for 1 minute, you can do it for 15 seconds. So the fact is that I ask you to do it for 5 minutes knowing that you're probably only going to do it for like 3 minutes. So if you want to change your life with clients from stressful to stress-free, if you want to start closing a lot more business, learn how that when somebody disagrees with you, to agree with them immediately, parrot back what they've said in the form of a question, and to get on their side for 5 minutes, and I guarantee you your life will change overnight. I know mine did. Because when I started to listen to my tapes, I found out that I was disagreeing with people left and right. And Jeff, can you unmute yourself? Has Jeff been on there, Missy?
Yep, he sure is. He's unmuted here, I think.
Yep, I'm here.
So, Jeff,
Okay.
when we listen to guys' tapes,
Yeah,
just an average guy, even a guy who's good at the system, who knows the scripts, who's good at the system, when we listen to the tapes, in 5 minutes, how often do we hear the advisor disagree with the client?
Well, they disagree quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but they disagree a lot.
Yeah, they don't say, boy, you're an idiot, Jeff. You don't know what you're talking about. Is that what I'm talking about with disagreeing?
No.
It's subtle. So it's where Jeff would say something like, well, the market always goes up. And says, well, sometimes it does, And then, guys, is that disagreeing or not? That's disagreeing. And we hear over and over and over the advisor telling the client wrong. Now, does the client say, hey, he just disagreed with me? No, the client just parks it. But what happens by the end of the meeting, guess what they decided about the advisor? I don't like this guy. I don't know why I don't like him. I just don't like him. It's because in 60 minutes, you probably disagreed with him 30, 40 times. Little subtle ways. Not saying, you're wrong, I'm right. No, but by either discounting what they say or saying, well, what you're saying could be it could be read that way or could be read another way. I mean, it's this constant pushback. And it's human nature. It's human nature. We want to be just as right as the client wants to be right. So guess what we constantly do to a client? Try to show them that we're smarter. Try to show them that we're smarter. Try to show them that we know more than them. Try to show them that they should work with us because if they don't, they're idiots. And by doing that, we constantly are telling them that they're wrong. No, we need to get on their side. So even these objections are not even often huge objections like, this isn't very liquid. It could be just an objection of, well, I mean, couldn't the market go back up? Or what if I needed my money? Or it can be very little things, but immediately what we do is we rush in and to try to prove that the client's wrong. Don't do that. Get on their side. So a lot of you know this drill. What's the one drill I would love for you to do every single day? The 5-minute drill. And the 5-minute drill is this. If you're a conservative, listen to public radio. If you're liberal, listen to talk radio. If you're neither, listen to sports radio. On the way into work, every day. And then find something that somebody says on that radio, then turn off the radio. And spend the next 5 minutes agreeing with them, explaining why they're right, explaining why their point of view is valid, explaining why totally getting on their side, not trying to prove that you're right. Agree with them, and the better you can get at agreeing with people who are whose opinion is totally the opposite of your own, your business will skyrocket and your stress level will fall through the floor. You'll have no stress whatsoever. And then what you need to start to do is to tape your meetings. Because when you start to listen to your meetings, you'll see how often you're disagreeing with people. Well, unfortunately, Jeff, they probably won't at first, the first 3 or 4 times that they listen to the tapes, will they even hear them disagreeing with the client.
No, it's subtle, like we said, and you won't hear it, but we'll hear it. And when we point it out to you, it'll become immediately obvious to you.
And then the nice thing is once it becomes immediately obvious to you, in your live meetings, guess what you start to hear yourself to do? Whoa. I'm disagreeing with them. Now here's the reason this is so important, guys. What are the 2 high stress points? What are the 2 highest stress points for a traditional sales cycle? One is the close, and the other one is what? Objections, exactly. So Kevin, what we're doing here, and I know that you're very good at this, is we're taking objections and making them opportunities to do what? We're taking objections that are high stress, and instead of making them high stress, using them as opportunities to do what? Guys. When they give me an objection and I tell them they're right, and then I pair it back in the form of a question and they agree with me immediately, and then I get on their side for 5 minutes, what have I done there? What have I done? Far better than saying, hey, you golf, I golf too. Hey, you went to the University of Michigan, I did too. What have I done far better than doing those silly things? I've created deep rapport. Why? Why have I created a deep rapport? Not a shallow rapport, not a sales rapport, a deep rapport. Why? What happens when we meet somebody who believes our core beliefs? What happens immediately? We have deep rapport with them. You like them. Exactly, Casey. You like them. So when somebody gives us an objection, and instead of arguing with them, we tell them that they're right, and then tell them why they're right, we haven't just diffused the objection, Bill. We haven't just diffused the objection. We've actually turned it into, because we have done that, but we haven't just done that. We've actually created deeper rapport with them. They like us even more than before the objection. Why? Because I've validated the way they think. How much do we like people who tell us that we're smart, who validate our opinions, who validate the way that we think? How much do we like those people? We love those people. So I've taken, in the traditional sales cycle, something that's very, very stressful that can create a rift between us and the clients, and turn it into something that actually builds greater rapport with the client. And here's the problem, guys, just so you know this. If you've, a lot of you know that I use motivational interviewing, the psychological discipline of getting people to change in the whole 5Q system. I use it a lot in all the scripts and everything else. What they found is this, is that you can never tell somebody what they need to do. Because if you tell somebody who has an addiction or somebody who does not want to change what they need to do, what do? If you tell somebody who does not want to change their lifestyle, the way they conduct themselves, etc., that they need to change, what do? They never change. They dig in. They dig in their heels. They fight you, exactly. And here's what they found. Even if I've had 12 good meetings, where I've never argued with them, never told them what they needed to do, but then at the 13th meeting, I disagree with them and tell them what they should do, what happens to those first 12 meetings? Just once. At the 13th meeting, I disagree with them and tell them what they should do. What happens to those previous 12 meetings? They're wasted away, Kevin. You're right. They're gone. It's 12 meetings, gone. Zipple, blammo, gone. All the work I did. Why? Yep, exactly. But blue credibility. Why? Because they know that listen, guys, just like our clients. Do our clients really think that we're going to lose sleep if they don't get a better rate of return? That we're going to just get depressed if they keep their money at risk? Do they really think we care about them so much that our psyche, lifestyle, stress levels are going to go off the charts if we don't allow us to help them? No. They know the reason we're trying to, quote unquote, help them is to do what? To sell them something. So when we try to overcome an objection, they don't look at us trying to overcome an objection because we're trying to help them. They look at us, we're overcoming an objection so we can sell them something. So when it comes to objections, we never, ever, ever want to object back to them. We need to tell them they're right, pair it back in the form of a question, and then get on their side. And once we've got on their side for a while, then it's what a lot of guys worry about. Geez, if I'm just telling them why they're right, if I'm getting on their side, when am I ever going to be able to give them my point of view or turn the objection around? It's not that hard, guys. You'll find that when you get on their side and all their defenses melt away, it gets to the point where they'll listen to what you have to say, and you can actually use the exact same language, the exact same script that you would use to overcome an objection normally, but it's received in a totally different way than if you just jump into it after they give the objection. That 5 minutes allows them to forget that they said that objection in the first place, and then when they listen to your reasonable take on why they should move forward, they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It allows them to say that because you validated what they say, you've got deeper rapport with them, and they don't have to say that they're wrong. Does that make sense? And I would tell you that if you do that 5-minute drill every day for 30 days, you will become an expert at this. But I've been preaching to guys for 10 years to do that 5-minute drill, and I can count on one hand how many guys have actually gutted it out and invested 5 minutes a day in themselves. That's it, 5 minutes a day in themselves to totally change their lives, because this stuff, this overcoming objections, you can use that with your kids. You can use it with the maitre d' at the restaurant. You can use that with your spouse. and you use it with your clients, it will change your lives. People will like you more. You'll get your way more, which is what we're all after, right? And you'll do it in a much less stressful manner if you're willing to invest in the getting on their side, Joe, getting on people's side for 5 minutes a day, listen to the radio, find something you totally disagree with, and spend 5 minutes getting on their side, and then just remembering just the first 3 parts of this formula. Agree with the objection, parrot back what they said, so whatever they said, if it's liquidity, you say, yeah, absolutely, you wouldn't want to be invested in something that wasn't very liquid, would you? To get them agreeing immediately back to you, and then getting on their side for 5 minutes. You do that, your lives will change. And not just your business life, every part of your life will change. So, that's what I wanted to cover today. Any questions on this? What are our lessons? Well, objections can be overcome, but first of all, it's a lot easier to not have them in the first place. And I can tell you what, guys, the WealthMax presentation is the epitome of a presentation that the reason it has so far a 100% closing ratio is because the whole presentation is overcoming any objection they could possibly have before they can even bring them up, and having us tell us over and over and over that that objection is not a problem. So by the end, when they have no objections, the only one thing they can do, which is say, how much money can we put into this? So I got a question here. Mike, what is the other thing you say only 2 advisors you've ever coached have ever done that have been very successful because they did it? Well, one is to learn the system because the objections aren't part of the system. So Dale's asked, what are the 2 things that you've only had 2 advisors do that your coach ever done and been very successful because they did it? Well, first thing is learning to get on people's side. That's not a script. That's something that's a skill you have to get good at, because you never know when they're going to disagree with you. You never know when they're going to disagree with you. So it's a skill at, number 1, hearing that they're disagreeing, so recognizing it, and then having the skill to get on their side for 5 minutes. That's the one thing. The other thing is the guys that have said, I'm going to learn the scripts, and they've learned the scripts. There's only been 2 guys that have done that. Both of them made over $1 million a year. One made $1 million a year with seminars that only averaged 12 people in the seminars. His seminars only averaged 12 people in the seminars, but he made over $1 million a year. Guess how good he was at the scripts? He was awesome. And he was awesome at getting on people's sides. Now, we've had a dozen people make $1 million using $1 million a year using the 5Q system. So you don't even have to be perfect at it, because we've only had 2 guys to be perfect at it. Only 2 guys that were as good as Jeff or myself. The other guys were very good at it, but even not perfect and still able to make $1 million a year. So the better you get, it's off the chart success you can have. Now, how do you know you're going to get better? How do you know if you're getting better, guys? What's the only way you're going to know you get better? What would you? And here's the point I'm trying to make. Let's say you take golf lessons. Then you go out and golf, and you score the worst score you've had in 15 years. Yes, Bill, tape and submit. Because if you take golf lessons and you go out and score the worst score you've had in 15 years, and you come back to the golf pro and say, I want my money back. Well, why do you want your money back? Because I went out and I used every single thing you told me. I followed your suggestions and your coaching to a T, and it all followed me up. Well, what do we know about that guy? Did he really follow and do exactly as the pro golfer told him to do? No. Because if we followed him, was his grip the way the pro told him to have it? Was his backswing the way the pro did it? I mean, no, he didn't do it. Maybe in his mind he thought he did it, but if we watch the tapes, was he doing what the golf pro told him to do? No. It's the same thing with us. If you don't think the system's working, I guarantee you that if you don't think the system's working, I guarantee you, if you send us a tape, Jeff and I will find out what's the glitch, and we'll fix it for you. And here's the great thing. When we find the glitch, guess what? What's so great? When we find the glitch, what's so great about finding the glitch? Once we find out what's causing the problem, that it's not working for you, guess what? Yeah, it fixes the problem, Travis, and it's fixed permanently. That's how I created the whole 5Q system. I tape myself. and I fixed one problem after another problem after another problem. I would never move on to fixing the next problem till I got done fixing the one problem. But the nice thing is, once I fixed that problem, it was fixed forever. Then I could move on to the next problem. Then I stayed with that one till I fixed that one, and then that one was fixed forever. And then I went to the next problem. And that's how I developed the system. I didn't sit down and develop the system. I did it through trial and error, just fixing one problem after another problem after another problem until there were no more problems to fix. That's why the scripts are written the way they are. I've overcome all the objections before they can come up, because the objections were, quote unquote, the problems, weren't they? So every single script I have overcomes all the objections before the client brings it up. If they're not working the way they're supposed to, send us a tape and we'll help you fix the problem. Does that make sense to everybody? Super. So remember from last week, you should all be scheduling your two things. Number one, scheduling your September out-of-the-box events, right? Because it takes 30 days. So we're running right to the bottom here. You need to be scheduling them right now. If you want to be having September seminars, you need to be on the phone scheduling them in the next 7 days to make sure you get in on time. That's the first thing. The second thing is you should be sitting down with your 5Q specialist, going through your client list on people that you can show the WealthMax presentation to. Guys, 100% closing ratio so far. If you have a 100% closing ratio, how many people should you be showing this to? And again, you don't sell it. You let the client sell themselves. So there's no downside to showing this to your current clients. Okay? So I appreciate you being on the call today. I hope that you have a wonderful week. And then don't forget about the Friday call, 11 o'clock Central, for those of you who want that one-on-one or that back and forth, everybody on the phone, role-playing type of training. And it's wonderful for the guys that are on there. So thanks, guys. Any other questions before I let you go? Okay. Then have a wonderful rest of the week, guys. Appreciate it.